Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. You love your dog? Then listen to my podcast, Forever My Dog. I will be sharing information that I'm studying, and it will be my own opinions, although I'm reading out of some of my best mentors' books. And I start off reading about the introduction called Humanity's Best Friend. Dr. Curtis Welsh was worried. As winter began its slow creep into the small Alaskan town of Nome in late 1924, he noticed a disturbing trend: increasing cases of tonsillitis and inflammatory diseases of the throat. The flu pandemic of 1918 through 1919 had killed a little more than 1,000 in his state was still fresh in his memory. But this was different. Some of the cases had the appearance of diphtheria. In his 18 years of practicing there as a physician, he had never seen a contagious infection brought about by a certain strain of toxin-producing bacteria that can lead to death, especially in children. Diphtheria was commonly known as the strangling angel of children. It causes the throat to become blocked with a thick, leathery coating that makes breathing very difficult. Without treatment, death and by suffocation was likely. By January the following year, it was clear he was dealing with an outbreak of a dreadful disease and had no treatment on hand. Children were beginning to die. At his request, all schools, churches, movies, and lodges were closed, and all public gatherings were forbidden. No longer could people travel on the trails, with the exception of those delivering mail or conducting urgent necessary business. Homes were quarantined if any family members were suspected of having the illness. Although these measures would help, what Dr. Welsh really needed to save his entire region of about 10,000 people was an antitoxin serum. The cure, however, was more than 1,000 miles away in Anchorage. It may as well have been a million miles away, as there was no way to traverse the ice-filled harbors or fly an open cockpit plane through the sub-zero temperatures. Enter teams of sled dogs and their drivers to participate in the Great Race of Mercy, a historic round-the-clock relay that covered 674 miles of rugged wilderness, frozen waterways, and treeless tundra over 5.5 days to deliver a miracle serum to Nome. 2 Siberian huskies named Balto and Togo stood out as the superstar dogs of the journey. They often relied on scent rather than sight to push through miles of blinding whiteout conditions. A perilous trip that is now part of the iconic Iditarod Trail. This story is just one of many that vividly illustrates how incredible dogs are and how humans and dogs have been helping each other since we fell in love thousands of years ago. It has been nearly a century since the serum run saved Nome, and as the irony of the world stage would have it, we write this while in the midst of another outbreak circling the globe. Society is searching for our modern version of such rescue dogs to save us from the invisible foe that has been lethal in many people. A sled dog is not likely going to deliver the anti-serum today, though we wouldn't put it past some more sled dogs coming to the rescue in remote areas, again for delivering anti-COVID therapies and vaccines. But our dogs have no doubt become central players in antidotes of other kinds that are helping us plow through the coronavirus pandemic. More than half of the U.S. households own pets, with dogs taking the lead over cats. By some estimates, 12% of adults with children under the age of 18 adopt pets because of the pandemic, compared with 8% of all adults. Pet ownership is trending upward, and we think it's here to stay. For many dog owners, our pets provide brief moments of paradise on long, refreshing walks, and are regular sources of hugs and kisses in our homes. They provide unwavering comfort, cuddles, and unconditional love. A distraction from the bad news and a beacon of hope for tomorrow. In some small communities, winery and brewery dogs are now delivering libations, and scientists are training a few breeds to sniff out sick people so they can be used as airport checkpoints. The experience of this pandemic has highlighted the importance of dogs in our lives and the role they have in helping humanity move along and, as it were, survive. As much as they depend on us for life's necessities, we rely on them for an untold number of things. They ultimately help us be better people physically, mentally, emotionally, and, one can easily argue, professionally. Numerous companies now list an office dog as an employee. It's really true that owning a dog has been proven to extend the longevity of humans. A growing body of evidence links dogs to good health, and not just for the obvious reasons of lowering our general stress levels and feelings of loneliness. Studies show dogs can lower our blood pressure, keep us active, reduce the risk of heart attack and stroke, boost our self-esteem, encourage social engagement, force us to be outdoors in nature, and trigger the release of potent chemicals in our bodies that make us feel safe, connected, and content. One study even revealed that dog ownership is linked to 24% reduced risk of dying from anything. What the scientific literature likes to call all-cause mortality. And for people with underlying cardiovascular conditions, which amounts to millions of people in the United States alone, that reduced risk is even greater. In 2014, Scottish scientists calculated that owning a dog, particularly later in your life, can turn back the aging clock and make you act and feel 10 years younger. You've also learned that dogs can help children develop stronger immune systems and soothe the stressors of adolescence, a period of time often riddled with self-doubt, peer judgment, adult expectations, and emotional turmoil. Dogs serve us well in many ways, from helping us to keep better schedules. After all, they must be fed and walked on cue, to protecting our families and sensing danger. They can detect the imminent doom of an earthquake minutes away and smell environmental changes in the air that signal a major storm or tsunami coming. Their keen senses make them excellent helpers in tracking down criminals, finding illegal drugs and explosives, and locating people who are trapped or worse, dead. Their olfactory prowess can nose out cancer, dangerously low blood sugar, and diabetic pregnancy. Diabetic, and in a diabetic pregnancy, and now COVID-19. And they can be surprising wellsprings of thought and inspiration. It has been suggested by scholars that dogs, in fact, introduced Darwin to the systematic study of nature and came to help shape his scientific approach in his formative years. Polly, a smart terrier, was often found snuggled in a basket by the fireplace near Darwin's desk in his study, where he wrote his seminal masterpiece on the origin of species. They'd converse in front of the window with Polly barking, while Darwin jokingly referred to the naughty people outside. Polly became a model for illustrations in Darwin's last book, 1872's Expression of the Emotions in Man and Animals. But not all the news is pooch perfect, Rosie. In our lifetimes alone, by some measures, we've witnessed a decline in canine longevity, especially among the pedigree dogs. We realize this is a bold and controversial statement to make, but bear with us. Although many dogs are indeed living longer like people, many dogs are dying prematurely of more chronic disease than ever before. Cancer is the leading cause of death in older dogs, with obesity, organ degeneration, autoimmune disease, and diabetes not too far behind. Younger dogs are more likely to die of trauma, congenital disease, and infectious diseases. We have met countless pet parents who are desperate for ways to keep the dogs in their lives as long as possible. Maybe not forever, but at least as long as they can for a healthy lifespan or health span. Lifespan and health span are two important terms that are not one and the same. We'll distinguish them shortly. We should be clear from the get-go. We're not aiming to teach you how to have a dog that literally lives forever. And we're not going to solve every dog's health problems in this book either. There are too many variables and potential permutations of different health conditions across all types of dogs to be able to spot treat every possibility, but you can find a gateway to personal pet problem solving on our website, in that I will post that website. The purpose of this is to offer a science-backed framework for optimal dog parenting and caring that you can tailor to your unique circumstances. And the purpose of calling it the Forever Dog is equal parts metaphorical and aspirational. We aspire to have dogs that live vibrant lives to the very end, whenever that is. In death, they stay with us too. After all, our dogs are forever in our hearts and minds, even when they are gone from this planet. Your dog has found a forever home with you, and you want to make the most of it. Interestingly, we didn't really consider our pets family members until after World War II. In 2020, historical geographers who analyzed the changing relationship between humans and the animals finally figured this out by looking at gravestones in Hyde Park, England, which date back as far as 1881. It holds a secret pet ceremony. cemetery, it holds a secret pet cemetery after collecting data on 1,169 grave markers from 1881 to 1991. They discovered that before 1910, only 3 gravestones, less than 1% of those surveyed, referred to a pet as a family member. But after the war, almost 20% of grave markers described pets as family, and 11% used surnames. The zoo archaeologists, as these researchers are called, also noticed more cat graves as time went on. And in 2016, for the first time, New York made it legal for pets to be buried with their owners in human cemeteries. If our pets deserve a spot in heaven with us, then they deserve as good a spot in life on earth with us too. Our mission is to empower the tens of millions of dog owners and anyone hoping to become one to change the way they came for their pets in order to improve the wellness of their animals, maintain their vibrant health, and ultimately extend the lifespan of dogs worldwide. They deserve to be free from chronic disease, degeneration, and disability. These are not inevitable outcomes of age alone, even in us. But reaching this goal requires a change in thinking as we take you on a vivid science back tour of all the key factors that can help us lengthen dogs' lifespans. Although we do get into the details of the science, we promise to make it easy. The research we've included is meant to educate and inspire us, and to provide the data and background for us to feel comfortable making the important lifestyle changes needed to maximize your dog's health and longevity. Depending on how familiar or foreign some of these wellness concepts are to you, our recommendations may seem overwhelming, so we've provided lots of options for small steps that you can incorporate into your dog's routine in whatever manageable increments your brain's bandwidth, your schedule, and your budget will allow. We field questions daily from a wide array of people who seek tips and solutions to maximize their pet's quality of life. And we know that our audience is as broad and diverse as it is deep and devoted. We come from different backgrounds and experiences, but we all have the same goals in mind when it comes to our dogs. We aim to strike a balance between speaking to those who need some hand-holding and those who crave the scientific intricacies. If you don't understand something, move on and don't worry about it. The common sense strategies will make sense by the end of the session. We trust you'll gain a lot of knowledge, even if you just skim the heavy science. And we'll be doling out practical tips along the way. We would be remiss to avoid describing the biology behind the fascinating facts of our dog's existence, and our own too. We also would be irresponsible to dodge difficult and sensitive conversation. For example, we're all reminded, whether we like it or not, that weight is a major issue in health circles today. Talking about those extra pounds is a taboo subject that many doctors and veterinarians included don't like to have in their offices. It's unpleasant and awkward. It's the third rail that's borderline, shame-raising. But the conversation is necessary. We're not casting blame again, we're offering solutions. When excess weight adversely affects health, it's like running while clumsily carrying a sharp object. None of us would let our dog run with a blade in his mouth, right? If there's one lesson you're going to learn over and over again, it's this: eat less, eat fresher, and move more and more often. That's truism for both you and your dog. And it's the biggest takeaway you're going to get from this session, even though we just gave away the whole point of the book in 10 words. You can't close this yet because you need to know how and why your pooch, how and why you and your pooch are going to eat less and fresher and move more. When you know how and why, the doing takes care of itself. We live in exciting times, thanks to the speed of technology and acquired wisdom about the mammalian body over the past century. Our understanding of activities inside cells has been exponentially increasing. And we are excited to present this new knowledge within the concept of one final goal: helping our darling dogs thrive as best they can alongside us. Many of our lessons debunk commonly held myths and practices, especially when it comes to diet and nutrition. Like many humans, lots of dogs are overfed and undernourished. You know that eating highly processed food at every meal is probably not a good idea, and that's pretty obvious. What's not commonly known is that most commercial pet food is just that: highly processed fare. Please don't feel too shocked or duped. You're not the only one in the dark. But the news isn't all bad, because just like the processed foods you enjoy, ideally in moderation in your own life, you don't have to stop feeding your dog commercial pet food entirely. You can make it work in moderation with the guidance that's provided, and you get to choose at which level you want to replace commercial pet food with fresher options. Fresher is better. Homemade, commercially raw, or gently cooked, freeze-dried, dehydrated, real dog foods are all substantially less alterated pet food choices and fall into the fresher category. When compared with ultra-processed kibble and canned food, we call all these less processed food choices fresher foods. And we'll show you how to tweak your dog's diet to incorporate more of them into his daily grub. As it's said, it starts with food that doesn't end there. Many dogs are also deprived of adequate exercise, while at the same time saddled with the impact of environmental toxins and the effects of our own toxic, unrelenting stress. We'll also discuss the ways you can begin to understand your dog's genetic past and present, and use this information to leverage proactive caregiving to mitigate the effects, for instance, of less optimal genetics. Breeding practices over the past century have radically altered many of our dogs. Some for the better, but unfortunately a lot for the worse. Sure, domestication brought floppy ears and more docile genes, but rampant and Structured breeding also brought out recessive genes and created genetic deletions and narrow gene pools. Such circumstances have contributed to breed flaws that generate genetically weak animals. 1 in 3 pugs cannot walk properly due to vanity breeding, which leads to, among other things, a higher risk for lameness and spinal cord injuries or spinal cord disorders. 7 out of 10 Dobermans carry one or both gene for dilated cardiomyopathy because of popular Sayred syndrome, which occurred decades ago. Dilated cardiomyopathy, or DCM, is a condition in which the heart loses its ability to pump blood because its main pumping chamber is enlarged and weakened. It's a common type of heart disease in humans, too. The good news is there's a lot we can do to change this picture. Dogs are canaries in the coal mine, or canines in the coal mine. Their health struggles in the past 50 years parallel ours. They age similarly to us, but much more rapidly, which is why research scientists are increasingly respecting dogs as models of human aging. Unlike us, however, our pets can't make health decisions for themselves. It's up to pet parents or owners or guardians, or whatever you prefer to call yourself in your dog's life, to make smart choices for lasting vitality and health. Let's show you how to make this as practical and doable as possible. We'll start by a sweeping look at the near extinction of the healthy dog in modern times, couching our conversation in a breathtaking view of our co-evolution. Dogs may be exploited, a niche they discovered in other human society when they persuaded us to bring them inside, shelter them from the cold, and feed them. Put another way, the dogs warmed up to us rather than the opposite. They entrusted themselves to our care, and we accepted and embraced the challenge. In these chapters, we now sound the alarm, describing the full spectrum of challenges dogs face today in their health and wellness, largely as a result of the trust they placed in us, their human caretakers, and we hint at solutions. Then we'll delve into the gems of from science and what we know about de-aging through diet and lifestyle. You'll learn how food speaks to genes, why a dog's gut germs, the microbiome, are just as important as our own inner microbial world for health, and why it's important to cater to your dog's choices, at least occasionally, and honor their individual preferences. Finally, we unveil a formula and show you how to implement the strategies in real life to build a healthy dog. We'll be equipping you with all the tools you need to tailor our recommendations to your companion's life and essentially stack the deck in favor of your dog's robust and vibrant health span. We predict that you will be transformed as well. You'll start to think about what you're eating and how much you're moving and whether or not you're living in the environment conducive to health. So what will be covered is diet and nutrition, optimal movement, genetic predispositions, stress and environment. To make things really simple and practical, we'll end each chapter with longevity junkie takeaways and suggestions for things you can consider doing today. Along the way, we'll put key phrases to remember in bold and highlight certain facts in boxes. You won't have to wait to get to the in-depth how-tos we outline in part 3. We'll give you actionable information from the very beginning so you can start to make small but meaningful changes right away. Again, we reflect what you ideally want from this session. Answers to the why from the science and the how from the everyday reality of putting that science into practice. Our animal-loving audience is diverse. If you're new to proactive living, we're hoping this is the beginning of a long and healthy friendship, centered around all we can do to maximize our dog's well-being as they age. Our core community is made up of hundreds of thousands of 2.0% pet parents, empowered, knowledgeable guardians using deliberate common sense approaches to creating and maintaining vibrant health for their animals. These committed pet parents have been using innovative health strategies for the last 10 years, and many of them much longer, and have begged us to put the longevity and wellness wisdom into a reference book, so that their veterinarians, friends, and family can read the pertinent science in one place. We also meet a lot of brand new dog owners revamping their lifestyles, including how they approach caring for family members. Our goal is to include enough background information so the recommendations make sense to the newcomers. We also wanted to provide the leading research for our longevity junkies. The biohackers always looking to tweak day-to-day choices to optimize their dog's health. We don't want this information to be overwhelming for the people who are brand new to the concept of proactive health. Our goal is to inspire, so take one tip at a time and integrate it into your dog's life in a way that works for you. Longevity junkie is someone who seeks everyday secrets to extending health span. The time spent in life free of disease, disorder, and disability with basic lifestyle strategies. I guess I'm a longevity junkie all the way around. That's just my comment, my personal comment. I like it. I think that's what I may call my podcast. The two of us joined forces. Oh, we're talking about these two great people, and I may mention them in detail. I am familiar with them, and I am one of those longevity junkies that's been at it for like 13 years. Yes, 13 years. And you'll come to learn about our individual collaborative journey in the pages ahead. As two dog lovers devoted to helping pet owners navigate the confusing world of animal health, we had no idea just how aligned our goals were when we kept running into each other at conferences and lectures. And yes, there are many others just like me. I'm the reader. I'm reading this, and I totally agree. And I think that it would be so nice if more people understood more about the health of their dogs and themselves as well. No sooner did we connect to forge a professional partnership that we realized there was an opportunity for us to achieve a shared dream together to retrain the collective mindset regarding dogs and their health. We knew the task would be challenging, in fact, over the course of the last several years. We've traveled to many parts of the world gathering the most up-to-date information about dog health, disease, and longevity. We interviewed top geneticists, microbiologists, oncologists, infectious disease doctors, immunologists, dietitians, and nutritionists, dog historians, and clinicians, collecting cutting-edge data to help us in our mission. We also interviewed people who have owned the oldest dogs in the world to find out what they did or didn't do to enable their dogs to live into their 20s and in some cases even their 30s, the equivalent of a super aging human living to 110 or older. That's called a super centurion. What we discovered as the potential to revolutionize the pet world forever. The information we've amassed, much of it which we hope will astound and motivate you, will increase longevity in beloved pets everywhere, and perhaps even in you too. As we like to say, health travels up the leash. Veterinary medicine is as much as 20 years behind human medicine. The latest anti-aging research will eventually trickle down to reach our pets, but we don't want to wait. There are also critical aspects of canine health that aren't part of the mainstream conversation. But that's changing thanks to the One Health, an approach that recognizes the health of humans is intimately connected to the health of animals and our shared environment. The One Health initiative isn't new, but has become more important in the last few years as physicians, osteopaths, veterinarians, dentists, nurses, and scientists recognize that we can learn more from one another through co-equal, all-inclusive collaborations, collaborative efforts to multiple disciplines, collaborative efforts to multiple disciplines, working locally, nationally, and globally to attain optimal health for people, animals, and the environment, defines the One Health initiative. So while research that unites human and veterinary medicine may not be mainstream quite yet, it's coming. We cover a lot of human health science in this session because it's the basis of much of the companion animal research in the works and vice versa. One Health concepts and correlations we discuss are not being widely broadcast in pet webinars or magazines. They are not discussed by most veterinarians and pet owners, and they are not popping up on social media yet. We want to start a much-needed conversation and spark a movement. The basics of what makes humans healthy or unhealthy also apply to dogs. We'd like to get that conversation started right now. The physical and emotional well-being of our dogs is shaped by the choices we make for them. And the well-being of our dogs that impacts us. In turn impacts us. The well-being of our dogs in turn impacts us. That leash is a two-way street. For centuries, humans and canines have enjoyed a symbiotic bond, with each affecting and enriching the life of one another. As the world of medical research becomes more global, the choices for canine health are as vast as those for human health. We all must choose wisely and raise a forever dog. So my personal note on this is it sounds like it will be an interesting study. I will not take over the writings of other people because I have my own input. This is, I'm sure that books are copyrighted, and I don't want to just read the book as if I am turning this book into an audiobook. I'm sure it can even be purchased as an audiobook. I have other reference books that I may revert to as well. I have been a health-conscious dog owner for, I would have to say, at least 15 years, but it's better if I say 13. And I agree with the things that have been discussed so far in this chapter. That was the very first chapter of this book, and it was actually just the introduction, Humanity's Best Friend. And if any of you fine people would like to get the book and read along, we can certainly study it together. The only reason that I am really doing this on a podcast is so that I have something I can refer to, and I don't have to take notes. I will just have it recorded by my voice, and I can share it with my intimate friends and other dog lovers. So this will be my first session in this podcast, and I hope to continue it on a regular basis. It doesn't look like it's taken too long, but this will be episode 1 in season 1. Who knows how far it will take us. We also have another podcast that I call Hear This. That's AHH, Hear, HEAR, This, Granma. And it's a podcast that I had started 8 seasons ago. So that's about 8 years ago. And every season I have continued on every Saturday. I have published a podcast, anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour long. And I'm happy to say that although I started it on my own, my husband soon came in and joined. And as God has done such wonderful things in our lives, we have focused more on the Bible than any other book as guidance for our podcast. So sometimes it seems like that's all we do is talk about God, which is great because who is better to talk about than the one that's in control of everything? So I'll end it with thank you for listening and join us next time.